I'll say my first Olympic experience in Rio, I was certain that I was done, that I was never coach again. The heartache, the highs and the lows, like the highs are really high and the lows are really, really low.
Welcome, everybody, to the highs and lows of X's and O's. I'm your host, Dr. Hillary Cauthen, or as some of my clients like to call me, Dr. C. I'm a clinical sports psychologist based in Austin, Texas, and I've been in the field for over 17 years working with individual athletes, teams, and organizations in building their mental performance and wellness programs. My passion is to assist breaking down stigmas across communities, which is highlighted in my book, Hello Trauma, Our Invisible Teammate. This is your go-to podcast where we delve into the intricate dance between mental health, performance, and success. Every week, we explore the peaks and valleys while striving for success with the insights straight from top performers and elite athletes. Join us as we uncover their stories, challenges, and mental cheat code that could be a game changer for your performance playbook. Let's get started. All right, I am excited for this week's guest. She's an accomplished athlete, an Olympic gold medal winning coach, Angie Akers, currently the Texas Beach Volleyball assistant coach. And I like to call her a global coach. Her international coaching experience began in the Netherlands, where coaching with the Dutch national team from 2015 till 2020. And during that time, she helped lead the Netherlands to the 2016 Rio Olympics and to the victory at the 2018 European Championship. She then went on to coach the United States A-team duo of April Ross and Alex Kleinman to the gold medal at the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. Angie values the relationship with the student athletes under her care and for supporting the whole person in their quest for competitive greatness, which I'm really excited for us to talk about with the coaching dynamic. Alongside that, she herself has played volleyball at very high levels at Notre Dame from 1994 to 1997. She's the Irish all-time leader in service aces and second on the all-time list in kills. And she had a long and successful professional beach volleyball career where she played on the AVP Tour from 2002 to 2013 and was named the 2002 AVP Rookie of the Year. She also played on the FIVB Beach Volleyball World Tour from 2009 to 2012 and was named the 2009 FIVB Rookie of the Year. From 2009 till 2012, Akers was also the member of the U.S. Beach national team. So very excited with all of your personal athletic endeavors to the international and national professional collegiate level coaching. I'm just excited for our conversation. So welcome.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing in current kind of state of 2024?
Currently, I'm at the University of Texas, and we are in the second year, just starting the second year of launching the brand new beach volleyball program. So it's been really exciting, a lot of fun, and extremely busy. But it's a great place to be, and we're really excited for the future.
That's great. And how many current players do you have on the team right now?
We currently have 11 players with 3 coming in the fall. So this past season we had quite a few redshirting.
Yeah.
So combined with the indoor program and brought those athletes out in order to complete the roster. And they gave us a jump start on learning about the university and what it means to be a part of the University of Texas.
Yeah,
so it's awesome.
Culture.
Yes, yeah. But going forward, we'll be our own program. And yeah, it is exciting.
So let's talk about what I like to do, our first chapter called Learning the Play. So bring me to your first sport experiences, like how you got involved in athletics as like a child.
Well, I grew up in a very sporty family. So with a basketball in my hand, probably from birth. My dad played basketball growing up in high school and a little bit in college. So in Indiana, everybody had a hoop in their driveway. So that was the first sport that I was ever introduced to. And then my dad was always a coach of the teams. So I had an older sister, and whatever she was doing, I had to do and follow her around and be a part of the team. And just was always super active and wanting to be involved. I think there was, a little bit of softball in there until, I took a ball to the nose and it was like, that hurt a little too much. But yeah, just, it was the thing to do. Like we had a rule in our house too, like either you got a job or you played a sport. And so I was like, I'm playing sports.
Right.
So there was always something going on.
At what age did you realize like volleyball was your sport?
I first started playing volleyball when I was in the 7th grade, and I liked it, but basketball was still kind of my thing. And once I got into, I haven't grown since I was in the 7th grade. So
Wow.
I was always so much bigger than all the other kids. But then by the time I got to high school, now all of a sudden there's, seniors that are bigger than me or the same size. And I was like, oh, this is a different world. And how physical the game began.
Yeah.
It was, I would have black eyes and like twisted ankles. And I just felt like I was really getting beat up out there. And what I really liked about volleyball was that it was super challenging, but nobody touched me. So there was no physical, physical part of it where, I didn't feel like I was just getting beat up. So that was really appealing to me. And when I really decided, I was like, okay, this is the route I'm going to go.
Right. And like through that dynamic, was it easy to find teams to play for and like get into this sport, or was it not as popular or common in your area?
It was just starting to become popular. So club volleyball was starting up, and so I tried out for a team, and eventually ended up traveling, driving an hour and a half each way to go compete on a higher level team, and it was growing fast at the time, and it was definitely a commitment on my parents' part too, just to have to make those choices, but it's paid off.
Yeah. And like, tell me about like your intro into beach, like when you started playing sand volleyball.
Well, it's kind of funny. Growing up, I had no interest whatsoever in beach volleyball. In Indiana, we didn't really have a beach, and there were no facilities anywhere, so I wasn't exposed to it at all. Through college, still had never played. It wasn't until I was 25 years old the first time I ever put foot in the sand. And
no way.
And the reason I made the decision was because I had been following my husband around. He was pursuing a professional football career, and I was finished with indoor volleyball at the time, and just was trying to find different ways for competitive edge, and ended up running and doing road races and that sort of thing. But that didn't pay any bills. So I was working at Lehman Brothers in San Francisco and sitting in an office all day. And I lasted a year and a half and realized like sitting in an office is not for me. So out of the blue, my college roommate and teammate called me up and said, hey, do you want to try playing beach volleyball? And I was like, yes, I do. I do. I know nothing about it, but yes.
Like, sign me up. I'm going to go compete.
Yep. So my husband was injured at the time and contemplating being finished with his career. So he moved to Southern California, and I just gave myself no option. Like, this is happening. This is going to work. And that was it.
And it worked. Was that your mindset always as like a youth athlete, collegiate athlete, of like, I'm going to stick to this and like make it happen?
I think probably a little, there was a lot of that. Yeah. And I think it was different with volleyball because I loved it so much, and it was just fun to get better and like hit the ball harder and just all the things, the components of the game that are so fun. It was just, I really enjoyed it. But there became a point when I really got burned out on it. And I feel like so much of that had to do with a little bit of like the situation and team culture and that sort of thing, and not necessarily like a lack of actual love for the game. So I had to refine that on the beach, and I did very quickly.
Nice. Yeah. So if we go back to like the youth experience, was there, I know dad coached for basketball, was there a standout coach that really influenced you, taught you something that you like still bring into your coaching dynamics now?
Gosh, that's a really great question. I would say as far as, I've had so many coaches along the way too, that it's, I feel like there's probably a little of each, but I think the thing that stands out the most to me is probably from my dad. It's just like the hard work and the love of it. It's like if you're having fun and you're working so hard at it, like it is so much fun.
Right.
And I think what doesn't stand, or the things that to me that it probably didn't like, is more, I guess, on the punishment side of things, and just kind of understanding motivation and why we do things, and that's a deeply personal thing too. So I think there's not one answer for a team. It's you got to have an individual approach and see what motivates each different athlete. And
Right.
that's what I like about it too, is it's not one size fits all. It's very much like getting to know people, getting to know what makes them tick and motivates them, and it's a deeply personal thing.
Right. Which, I think we're learning that side of the game now and building in the mental components and like learning how to like build the culture, but then have the individual framework. When you were an athlete, transition from high school to college and experiencing different cultures, even at the professional level, did you feel like coaches were in tune to your needs, or was it kind of one size fits all?
I feel like not always. Like it somewhat was a one size fits all, but at the same time, I think probably very hard to read. Like was very, very shy and a complete introvert, except when you got me on the court.
Right.
Then, it's like I could be a different person. But outside of it, like asking my opinion, I don't know, not really shared too much. But I think there's a lot of insecurity in speaking up or sharing my thoughts and opinions. But I knew and trusted like my work ethic and how hard I could go, how hard I could push, and was willing to try stuff. And that's where I felt that was my comfort zone. So I can really relate and understand those like really quiet athletes.
Yeah. So looking at this transition into college, right? We're not at the beach level yet, but what was that college experience like for you? I mean, how was it to transition into a higher level of play?
Well, I think one of my best friends was a college teammate, and she teases me to this day about how my freshman year I didn't say a word off the court. Like I was just really that introverted and such a quiet person outside of the court. I had to learn, it's self-confidence, and trusting yourself too, and that what you have to say is of value. And that has taken a really long time to get to that point. And it's so important for getting to those next levels, especially competing on the pro level. You can't just be subject to what everybody else says. And so it's like there's so much in our game to beach volleyball that requires taking initiative and problem solving and thinking, and you have to be able to share that and communicate it. So it took a long time for me to kind of figure all that stuff out and be comfortable just being vulnerable with it, and like, okay, I might be wrong, but this is what I think. And I think I have that a little bit of the perfectionistic, like, what if I say it is wrong, and so getting over it,
Yeah. Were there resources like available to you, or did you mentor after anyone that allowed you to get more comfortable in yourself?
I don't think there were resources available. At least if there were, I didn't take advantage of them, other than maybe like reading a book here or there.
Right.
But I mean, at that time, this was back in the 90s, and it was still somewhat seen like, oh, if you're going to see the sports psychiatrist or psychologist, then there must be something really wrong. So it's like nobody wanted to go, but like that. And thankfully that has changed so much now, but that would have benefited, I think, me especially tremendously if I had, utilized a resource like that at a much younger age. Deep into my professional career, I saw a sports psychologist, but I mean, I had already been playing, a good 8 years and lost all of that opportunity.
Yeah.
But it paid off. I mean, it makes such a huge difference.
What was maybe like the most, if you look back at the college time, like, or even high school, the most memorable moment? Is there a game? Is there an event? Something that you're like, this was a highlight for me, like a really high moment in my playing career?
You talk about like those kind of the highs of the highs, and doesn't even relate to volleyball, but it was running the Boston Marathon. And that, to me, I'd never felt something, because it was hard. I hated running before, and just kind of randomly got into it. It's fulfilled a competitive need that I had. And that race was something really, really special. And with all the volleyball stuff too, it still is just something that's so unique. And to me, it kind of was like the pinnacle of the feeling that you search for.
Yeah. That successful pride, you're saying you did this.
Yeah.
No one could take that from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Boston Marathon, just the environment culture itself of that race is historical and adds to the level of it. Yeah. So is there a low that you can think of that like this was maybe the most difficult thing that you had to overcome in your playing career?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I went through a series of injuries, really serious ones. The very first one being 19 years old and tearing ACL and MCL. And, originally the doctors, with a grim view on it, like, okay, you're going to come back, but you probably shouldn't jump too much anymore or have impact. Like there's already so much degenerative issues going on in your knee. And I'm a little bit of that person of like, you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Right.
So that kind of, I mean, they never would have advised running marathons.
Or the long professional career you had after that.
So it was a little bit of, okay.
Were you, did you have doubt? I mean, ACL is obviously, it's a common injury that we see happen, right? And we look at the women's dynamic and the vulnerability that female athletes have to ACL tears. During that time, was there a fear of, I couldn't return to sport?
I don't think I ever had that fear that I wouldn't return. I think it was just more like, will I be the same? And it was very quickly after, I would say within a year after, I was able to really look at it as a blessing in disguise. Like it changed so much about my game. Just I was a smarter player because of it. I knew my body much better because of it. It educated me in a way I didn't expect. And so many times we look at things like that as a catastrophe or whatever, but from that moment on, it set me up to see injuries as opportunities for growth and just like, okay, this happened, what can I learn from it? How is this might change things, but what new tools am I going to get because of it? And then I ended up with 4 more surgeries after that. So I think it did help me, overcome each one, kind of knowing like, okay, it's, put in the hard work, you do this stuff, it takes time, but eventually, be back and be better because of it.
Yeah. And I think the interesting approach you say is the awareness you have in your body, right? And the impact that can then add value to how you play and how you think differently. And it's trusting yourself, but there was never a doubt you couldn't come back and move. It's just learning to move with the body you have now.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. So in the professional realm, right? New sport, we'd say, right? Haven't done it and you're just committed to it. Was it that easy that you're like, I'm in it and it's great?
No, it was so hard, especially after running too. My vertical was non-existent. My explosiveness was non-existent. And so, like moving in the sand it felt like just being stuck in mud.
Yeah.
But there still was something about it that it was just so intriguing and it was fun and it was outside and there was something about it that I just hooked me. And pretty quickly, well, not pretty quickly, and it probably took a good 6 months before I felt like I could actually move okay in the sand. And then, even longer than that to feel like, jumping and moving lane, like all that sort of stuff, like that I felt like an athlete again. But that hard work to me was like, I thrive in hard work, hard physical work. And just at the end of the day, being exhausted and just knowing that you put the work in and like I was thriving those years.
Yeah. And that like mental game, right, that we like to talk about, like where was that? The mindset was, I'm going to do this. What else for support system or resources, or did you have that really allowed you to push through the hard times, the learning curve that you had in the sport?
Well, number one, I had a husband who was extremely supportive and, I mean it in every way, like beach volleyball is not a sport that you're going to go out and make a great living at. So financially, he was very supportive. But emotionally, like, he was a professional athlete himself, so he knew what it took and the understanding of the commitment and, the decisions that you make to miss certain life events, like the sport. I missed important weddings and birthday parties and, unfortunately, funerals and stuff like that. Those are hard decisions. But I was so committed to the sport, and it's, you play with one other person. So a lot of times, you feel like you're very much committed to that person as well. So my husband was so on board with all of that. But then I met some really amazing people who just were supportive from the start. They're like, "Oh, I see you out here, trying to live your dream. Like, I'm doing the same. How can I help?" And there were a couple random occurrences. This is back before cell phones too, so,
Right.
or social media. So, somebody called one of the top players in the world was hosting a rookies camp and randomly called my house looking for somebody else. So I called her back and I'm like, "She doesn't live here, but I do. Can I come?" And
No way.
yeah,
So you could learn to advocate for like yourself at this point where before you wouldn't, and you're like, this is my chance.
for sure,
Wow.
for sure. So ended up going to her camp, and by the end of it, she had named me her, her all-star of the week or whatever.
Wow.
And so then she started inviting me to her practices as her training partner, and ended up being a mentor throughout my career and is one of my very good friends today. So and I feel like the people, like, just those were the resources that were invaluable.
And like, talk to me about the partner dynamic, right? Like, for what that relationship looks like, how you find the right partner when you're playing beach. Like, was that difficult? Did you go through a lot of them? Were you lucky to just find one and stick? Like, how's it working for you?
Oh, the beach volleyball partnership world in the United States is kind of a mess. So there were very few partnerships that, like, found each other early, stuck together, and had a lot of success. And those are like the prolific ones that, Misty Bay, Carrie Walsh, like, you hear about them
Right.
for a long time, but there aren't a whole lot of those. I went through like almost every single season, I had a different partner, with the exception of there were 2 seasons where the first one, the plan was like we had great chemistry, loved playing together, finished the year out, but then she had to go in for shoulder surgery, thought it was going to be just like a quick little cleanup, and it ended up being a year plus recovery. So that took that partnership away, which was super unfortunate. And then the next one was with a partner for 2 seasons, and then she got pregnant and started a family. So, there's all sorts of different dynamics that come into play with the women that the men don't have to even think about. But it's just you're constantly looking for chemistry, communication, skills that complement each other as well. So, we play positions, and I was always the go-between. Like, I could play blocker or defender. Was never exceptional at either, but could fill the space. And then, the side out game was my strength. So I think I was probably a desirable partner for those reasons. But you're just kind of always looking for not just what the good chemistry is. You need results too. So, and goals to align, and it's just a whole lot that goes into it.
Yeah, and I think that that's the value of you experiencing it now than educating your athletes on like what to look for and how they can sell themselves, because it is a little bit of the selling game, right? Of like, here's my resume, this is why you should pick me.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that, but at the college level, there's much less say that they have at it. Of course, we do hear what they, their thoughts on who they think they play well with and mesh really well with. But at the end of the day, it's the coach's decision that we need to put a lineup together, because it's not just one team against another team. Like, we play 5 teams within our big team that play against another university's 5 teams, and we need to win 3 of those in order to actually win. They call them a duel,
right?
So in order to win the duel, so we can't just put, like, make everybody happy and put these teams there. We got to be strategic with it as well.
Yeah. So tell me the shift of when you knew it was time to retire out of sport, and then this transition into a coaching career.
Yeah, that was a very, very difficult time. My last knee injury, and it was a pretty serious one. I had torn the meniscus from the meniscal root, and the surgery required um, similar to like a microfracture, but the meniscus had to be reattached, and I was 3 months non-weight bearing.
Wow.
And I was thinking in my head, like, oh, no problem. I can just hop on one leg, and it's not the case at all. It was quite debilitating and challenging. And I was 37 years old at the time when it happened, and the doctors told me like, okay, it's going to be 3 months non-weight bearing. Then you can start putting a little bit of pressure on, but you're going to be on crutches for a while. And then it wasn't until 9 months that I could actually like start walking in the sand. And then, I mean, all in all, it probably took 2 years for that knee to feel good again. But I knew that was the end. I was 37, and knew that like it was time. Like my play was, going downhill, and it's not fun either when you're capable of a certain level, and then see it go down and your body's hurting, all those things. So I made that decision. I knew it was the right decision, but then the what next questions came, and that was so incredibly hard. I never thought I wanted to coach. It didn't interest me. And so I ended up getting a job for 6 months for an event, a beach volleyball event that was taking place in Long Beach. And so I was working behind the scenes. And again, it was kind of a desk job. And it was just kind of sucking my soul.
Yeah.
And I realized like I love the sport. I want to be involved in the sport, but this is not the answer. And at the end of that event, one of my former, I guess I don't know how to describe this, but we're like a traveling circus on the FIVB tour, because it's at the time it was almost all the same teams that were traveling from event to event to event, competing against each other. So one of the coaches, when I was competing, we had made friends, and when he was coaching then for the Netherlands, when they came to this event that I was working at in Long Beach, so we reconnected. Asking like, what are you doing now? And like trying to figure it out. Do you miss the travel? Yes, I miss it a lot. Any interest in coaching? No. What about coming to the Netherlands and coaching? And I was like, I do have wanderlust. And I'm like, yeah, actually, that sounds very interesting. So we started conversations around that. He ended up being kind of that first coaching mentor that I had. So this all happened. This conversation was like July of 2014, and it took until January of 2015 for it to become a reality. But I moved over to the Netherlands. I just sat in everything with him, like just learned so much for about the first 3 months. And then he unfortunately had a falling out with one of the teams, and they decided to part ways. And the only solution was going to be for me to coach that team and him to continue coaching the rest of the Dutch teams. So after 3 months, I was kind of on my own again, but with that team. So it was a jump start into coaching, and a lot of lessons to learn for sure.
Yeah. And then at what point did you have a moment being like, yes, this is my career, I'm doing this?
There have been so many ups and downs with it. Like, I'll say my first Olympic experience in Rio, I was certain that I was done, that I was never coach again. Like, that was just the amount of pressure, the heartache, the highs and the lows. Like, the highs are really high and the lows are really, really low. And I just, after that, I want something consistent. Like, I want something different. Then take 2 months off, and then let's do it again, try it again. Yeah. And it was just kind of constantly like that. And I think really it was after the Tokyo Olympics where I made that decision. It was like I love volleyball at that level. Like, beach volleyball, the game is incredible, but I want to influence people more at a younger age, and when they're a little bit more impressionable, and and it's just a little bit more of a consistent environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the university level became more appealing at that point. And so still wasn't sure I was going to love it, but then I had an opportunity at Loyola Marymount and loved that. And that kind of was the deciding factor. Was like, yeah, I can see this. It's just such a great age. Like they're going through so much, and you're working at a university where there's so much happening, and the atmosphere is incredible. And so, yeah, that was kind of the moment, I think.
Yeah. I had a recent, story share about this kind of warm hug feel in the athletic, university level, where the support system is kind of like, it's like a warm hug. It's like safe still, right? I feel like hearing your story as the athlete to the professional level to then coaching at this high Olympic professional level, it is less stable. It's less consistent. It's less it's impactful, but different in terms of like the collegiate space where they are in this bubble for a little bit of period of time, and it's safe, and you get to help navigate so they can launch to be successful after that part.
For sure. And at the college level, they're going through so much, and there's so much of it that's so fun. It's like, you've got the freshmen coming in, everything is so new. They're eating different food. They're, living in a different place. And like, there's so much that you help guide them through. At the professional level, like they're there. They know, like it's more like a little suggestion here and more almost management than it is actually like mentoring, coaching, and all those things that I think are really important to me is like helping them shape who they want to be in the future. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be professional athletes, and that's totally okay. Sometimes that's, maybe even better.
Right.
But the lessons that they learn from it, you hope that's what they take and become great humans later on in life. And that's the impact.
Yeah. And you've talked about like the sport and the roller coaster of like the really deep lows and the highs. And I think in the professional space and the Olympic cycle, I think Olympic athletes can experience that post-Olympic game time, right? Like that month after the games, this high climatic experience. And it's like kind of, we call it Olympic blues, right? It's like, can you speak to that? Did you experience that yourself? Like, what was that like?
Oh yeah. It's a real thing for sure. The 2016 Rio Olympics for me was like a punch in the face. It was my first Olympics. I tried to qualify as an athlete and didn't. So, there was the devastation of, didn't make my dream. But then, the hype around, wow, okay, did it as a coach. It was great. You're there. The team, I would say, we finished 9th place, but our goal was, 5th place or better. And so, it's an underperformance. And that feeling of underperforming on, the world's biggest stage, it's that one moment too. Like you invest some people 10, 15 years into one moment. And then when it's over, it's over. And I didn't leave my room, I don't think, for 3 days after we were finished, and just like trying to like, what am I doing? Figuring out. That was the beginning of my journaling that I ever journaled, and just like wrote so much about like, what is this? What is happening? What am I going to do now? What do I want to do? And I would say the next 2 months were pretty brutal. And I was sure that I was done and just trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
And then something gets in the back of your head again, and you're like, okay, maybe it can be different. But the lessons that I learned from that going into Tokyo paid massive dividends. Like I paid so much attention to my own mental health, and I put systems in place to make sure that every day I was taken care of. And I gave myself permission to do it because I knew that if I brought the best version of myself, that was the way I could help my team. Mm-hmm. So instead of like, keeping my phone on until all hours to accept phone calls, I'm like, no, my phone goes off and I'm in bed at 9. I get my solid hours of sleep. I'm up early. I can deal with stuff. Making sure I get my workouts in and no compromise with it. So that helped so much. And I felt just fresh throughout the whole time that we were there.
So I think you bring an interesting point, and I do want to spend time on the mental game for sure. Like, but there's one side of the athletic experience that you've talked about of collegiately at that time, there weren't the resources available, or it's definitely the stigma was really high of like, if it's a problem, you go there, but we still don't talk about it. We don't highlight the success of seeking out support. We kind of just hide it under the rug, you figure it out and come back, right? We've seen it progress in multiple avenues, starting in 2015, become more relevant. And, people are seeking out. We have more coaches alongside now. We have people that travel. But we don't highlight as much still the coaches aspect of the mental game. And you shared, like, you personally for yourself, not even playing, like spent 3 days contemplating, what does this mean? What's my future? Where am I at? And I still think we're missing that part of the mental game now for coaches, is we are putting it in place for our athletes, but the coach side, it's still not there.
Yeah. And there's so much pressure on you as a coach too, from everywhere. Like there's so many facets to the job. It's a 24/7 job. It's not something you just, can close at any time. But, everything from, at least at the college level, now you are following compliance. You're helping with the athletes. You're coaching, you're practice planning, you're recruiting, you're talking with other coaches around the country. There's the list goes on of the different like places that you're pulled. You're trying to run camps. Like there's so much to it that it feels like there's no one day that's the same. And you could get burnout really, really easily if you don't take care of yourself. If you don't prioritize the things that keep you sane, right? Because there's a lot.
And if we look at like what sport is, which is wins, right? And we've talked about this in different parts today of like results matter. Were results more of a pressure point for you as an athlete or now as a coach?
I think probably at the time as an athlete, because that's how you eat, right? Like when you only get what you earn. Yeah. And so, if you have a bad tournament, you don't make any money. That's pressure right there. Yeah. So the pressure you put on yourself, like, because it is a direct reflection of performance, your paycheck. So, I think that lends a lot to, to adding that pressure there. With coaching, I definitely still feel it, but also I can very, very much compartmentalize where we are and what that goal is for that moment, and accept like, okay, maybe there's something going on. We know like a win would be a long shot. So what are our other goals? And so, kind of, I guess it's more looking at the big picture. I think that's easier because it might be slightly less emotional as a coach for me than it was as a player.
Yeah. The perspective shift changes, right? And I think trusting the process, but trusting the culture and the team you have as coaches around you of what the plan is, and everyone being on the same page there.
Yeah. That's part of why I love the college coaching too, is you have a staff. You're not by yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think in the pro game, that's where it can be very lonely. Like most of the time you're just by yourself and think this is a good idea. There's nobody to bounce it off of. And unless you're on a staff and I was lucky with the Dutch, the last few years we had a coaching staff. So that was more collaborative. But that's what's nice about the college game too, is that you're not on an island by yourself.
So in the college space now, like what lessons are you making sure your athletes are learning, like especially on the mental and emotional side of the game that you didn't have, but now is needed? What's implemented? What are values that you guys instill?
We really value the team environment of it, being good teammates, and what that means. So, it means investing in the relationships, investing in people. It's being a good example of what, like effort levels out in the sand and kind of pushing, like what is our standard, holding people to that standard, but it's not doing it in a, for us, it's in a kind way, like keeping the standard. And we also really push for the connection piece of it. So we'll do a lot of team building outside of just the the courts, because that's, happy people work hard together and accomplish great things. And I think if we are not connected and just try and piece things together out on the courts, then we're missing out on part of it. So I think that's really what we're pushing for now.
Yeah. And how have you seen like the mental game shifting in the sport?
Well, mindfulness has become such a bigger piece for it now. So even when we travel, you see other teams who are, taking the time for a team mindfulness session before they compete or whatever. So I think before it was like, oh, what are they doing? There's a team over there. It was a little bit shocking, but now it's becoming way more mainstream. You see quite a few teams. I would almost say the majority of teams are making that space for a mindfulness part of, before competition. And I think for us too, is we want that to become part of our norm. It's just like practicing, right? Like if you just try and rely on it during a match, but you're not practicing it, you're not really going to know how to use it. So we try to make it a part of the daily practice where every day there's some exposure to it and an encouragement to use the tools during the training session when needed as well. And that way, when they're in that really high pressure moment, then they have something to kind of grasp onto.
Yeah. And like you talked a little bit about like you wish you kind of had this mental aspect resource available. Like what age of an athlete do you think for you, or looking at like different dynamics, would be the best time to implement a mental skills coach or a sports psychologist into the training?
The younger, the better.
Yes.
Right. I think what has fascinated me is I've gone and coached some camps where there've been some pretty young athletes, like maybe as young as 14 years old. And I see them doing different breathing techniques and mindfulness techniques on their own. And then kind of ask them about them. Like, yeah, I've been doing that. My dad, exposed me to this probably 5 years ago, wow. And you can see a calmness about those athletes too, when they're out there. Like, why not the younger, the better.
Right. I love that. Where do you see the women's sport era going, right? There's a big shift in women's sports. There's now more exposure. Like, how is this impacting the game?
Well, first of all, so much fun. One of my best friends has an 8-year-old son, and you ask him his favorite team right now, and it's Iowa women's basketball. And like, how cool is that?
Right.
It seems like just an explosion right now with it, but part of it is because now it's accessible, right? Now it's on TV. Now we're seeing it. And like, that has to be a part of it. Like, expose us to it. We'll watch it if it's there. So that part's really exciting. I think the University of Texas is doing an awesome job with their women's programs. Just highlighting like how much fun the atmosphere is at the women's basketball games and softball and all the different sports. And our beach volleyball events are going to be a blast. So having that support, people believe in what you're doing and want to make it a really cool environment is part of it too.
Do you see any downside or fears that you got to kind of prevent to manage expectations, pressures on the female athlete, the mental side of things for these women?
Yeah, I think it's a different age with all the social media and accessibility that we have. So when I was growing up, there wasn't any of that stuff. It may have been, like one game a season was televised. Other than that, it's like if you're not there, you're not seeing it and you're missing it. So there was a different pressure of actually like almost feeling no pressure to all of a sudden there's a camera on you going like, oh my gosh, there's cameras. And so it felt different. Well, now there's cameras everywhere. They've got, streaming, on their own devices happening all the time. So they're constantly being watched and probably judged and all that. So I can imagine it's a completely different feeling. And from that, I can just see it like the mindfulness has got to play an even bigger role in just being able to handle that pressure and know how to, just know what to do with it.
And if you were to give like a mental cheat code, right? Like whether this is, maybe we'll do two because, we have the coaching aspect and the athlete aspect, right? So for athletes, what do you think is a mental cheat code that would elevate their game?
Well, I've been really lucky to have had exposure to some great sports psychologists, Dr. Peter Haberl and Dr. Bernie Holiday, and have learned some amazing tools from them that I try to kind of pass on to my athletes. But I put them in practice for myself as well, and I think they're extremely useful. But the first one is the noticing, like, where are my thoughts? Like, are they turning negative? Like, what's happening with them? Noticing them and accepting them. Okay, they're there, but now what am I going to choose to do? So where do I choose to put my attention? And so if I'm in a competition and maybe I just made a mistake and I feel embarrassed, you can notice and feel that embarrassment, but then I can consciously choose that next action. Like, okay, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go up and I'm going to do this. So I think there's a lot of power in that. And, that's stuff that I've learned from them that I try to pass on.
I love it. Would there be anything different for coaches?
I think it's the same. At least it's what I use. I try to really be aware and notice where my thoughts go, where is my attention, and it's easy to get lost in, like, if I'm watching a volleyball match, if my attention isn't where it needs to be, I could easily get lost in the crowd, or just kind of like go off somewhere else, and then I have to, like, be aware, practice, like, oh, I'm getting lost, and notice that, and then this is what I want to be focusing on, and really direct my attention again.
I love that, like noticing and then the next step, right?
Yep.
That's great. Well, so is there any last kind of tidbits you'd love to share that you feel we haven't covered?
We've covered a lot, Ellie. I think just continuing to normalize and advocate for mindfulness practices across the board. Like, I think it can benefit everybody.
Yeah.
And not just athletes, right? I mean, it's, in the boardroom or at home, when things get crazy, if there's, like, family dynamics going on, like, they're useful in a lot of different situations in the classroom. I think I just would love to see it just more normalized and talked about even more.
And making time for it. And I do feel like we're on a trend for that being really present. I think the mindfulness aspect, people feel it's like, I just have to sit and be quiet, but there's so many elevations and integrations of how mindfulness looks and how you can practice it. And to your point, it's like, let me just notice first and be present, and then kind of choose the next step, builds the awareness. I love it. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. I mean, I think that the dynamics and the evolution of the injuries, the coaching, evolution that you've experienced cross-culturally, the dynamics and shifts, and from your personal to professional career. I mean, I think there's a lot of lessons here of how we've navigated and what you've worked through and the success you're having.
Well, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you for joining us this week on the highs and lows of X's and O's. I hope today's episode has equipped you with another mental cheat code to help you navigate your own highs and lows in pursuit of your success. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we'd love to hear what you'd like to hear next. Until next time, stay curious, compassionate, and courageous.